Welcome back, everyone, to Q&A with Sharon's son, George. I was my mother's caretaker after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020. We started TogetherForSharon.com in her memory. Today, I have two individuals to me that are very special. They're not just fighters, but I feel like we've become family. I mean, I know them for almost a year. We never really got to talk except for a short time, but I follow them. I share all of their work. But it only goes as far as we're all a team in this fight. And anytime my family even some days say, George, you're going to burn yourself out. And then I say, yeah, but we can't stop because Parkinson's disease does not stop. So I want to really a hug, a virtual hug, and a welcome to Bernard and Denise Coley, who, again, I feel such an honor and getting the heartfelt, tingly feeling having you with me today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, and virtual hug back to you.
Yes.
And I know you've been actually have some new initiatives. I hope we get the time to talk about. But first, I wanted to really just maybe hear about your story. You both inspire me. You're both in this fight together. My mother, unfortunately, was alone, so I stepped up as her caretaker. But it's interesting to have a couple. You might be told this a lot, but I think it's even more inspiring. So maybe you could tell us just a few words about both of yourselves, how you came to this fight, and also a little bit about your book. But we're going to also, today's about you both, so I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, George, for this opportunity. And we really appreciate all that you're doing for Parkinson's and making sure that is aware and running to the finish line for a cure and to help us thrive in the Parkinson journey in the meantime. To tell you a little bit about my story and then our story. November 7th, 2017, it was Thanksgiving. The children at dinner said, Mom, you're shaking. I said, I'm not shaking. And my dear husband said, yes, you're shaking. So it was decided that we would go to the doctor. Well, the doctor sent us to a neurologist who promptly gave me the diagnosis. I told him that he gave me a death sentence. My dear husband had to talk to him for about 45 minutes as I cut out of the conversation. All I could see is everything that I had built, everything that I knew, and everything that I enjoyed work-wise was going down the drain. So we were going back to the car, and I won't still Bernard's lying about the visit to the car because he gets after me for doing that. But we got to the car and we had a discussion, and he wanted to tell everybody. I did not want to tell everybody. I only wanted to tell my brothers and Bernard. And he says, well, that's not going to last too long. So I gave myself a 3-month pity party or grief cycle. And then during that time, had to figure out, well, what does this mean? Well, one thing is I started researching every day, anything about research that I could find on Parkinson's. And I do that still to this day. The second thing that I did is I made sure that I try to make sense of what had happened. What does this diagnosis mean? And what would life mean? And as the doctor tells you, when you get it, the family gets it, the household get it, the dog gets it. So we had to figure out, all right, so I'm not going to twiddle my thumbs any more than 3 months. That's way too long, especially under the urging of my dear here. So I finally came up with, this was a sign that really we should look at our background and look at the gaps and what possible solutions could come up and how we can make it work. So I went to him and I said, dear, I know you're not busy. And he smiled and said, my plate is full. You're not busy. And so we formed Team Coley. And as Team Coley, we went to the Parkinson Foundation patients and advocates and research, Parkinson's patients and research, which is called PAIR. And there we learned how to work with researchers. And the last day, they asked a question. What is your advocacy? And from that day forward, anyone who asks me, I'll say, I am a Parkinson's advocate for awareness, for education, for resources, and research so that people can be empowered to advocate for themselves. And with that, I'll have my dear get his side of the story.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
So I always like to begin my part of this by saying, in every library, there are at least 2 sections. There's the fiction section, and then there's the nonfiction section. So you've heard the fiction section. Now I'm going to give you the nonfiction.
Nice.
Okay. So fortunately, I was at the session where Denise was giving her diagnosis, because for some 10 to 12 years before that, I had started traveling with Denise because I knew something was wrong.
Right.
But we didn't know what it was. And my goal was to basically, I could travel with my job. I'm a serial entrepreneur, management consultant. So I could operate almost anywhere. So I started traveling with her. First, the baggage handler, luggage carrier, all those kind of jobs. But then even more, I started getting more and more engaged with the work she was doing because it was fascinating. It was in global supplier diversity. But I digress. Let me get back to the story. So fortunately, I was there that day. And it's a good thing too. And it's one of the pieces of advice we share all the time for the Parkinson's community. Please go to your appointments with someone else in attendance. It's always good to have another set of ears in the room, and also someone who can step up and advocate, because quite frankly, it's real that if you hear some of these diagnoses, or you hear, or you're having trouble with a change of your condition and upgrade the symptoms, it's just real for people to blank out and not want to hear it. But also the care partner, in this case, it was me, could also comment, because, if you ever seen, they have a name for it in medicine, I forget what it's called, but when the patient heads into the doctor's office, all of a sudden they're 100% healed, everything is better, they straighten up and fly right. Nothing's wrong, doctor.
White coat syndrome.
And you need to have that other person in the room that goes, wink, wink, no. There's things happening here.
I always bring a list in, like a grocery list, because I always
yes. So the story goes, she got the diagnosis, and she really heard wah 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 for the next 30 minutes. During which time I'm looking at the doctor, because I know absolutely nothing about Parkinson's disease. And in fact, we'll talk about that a little bit later. The language just went over my head. But I listened, because I was listening for a couple things. For me, it was, okay, we got this thing. What do we do now? Okay. I know I've been watching her degrade physically, having mental challenges, all kinds of symptoms. He never asked. And he also, sadly, never asked who we were, which we'll get into, some of the health disparity issues, or what we really wanted. So I listened, and then I had the chore of escorting Denise from the doctor's office on what I like to call the longest trek of my life, all the way across Siberia, as we walked from the office to the car in the parking lot. And it was a long trek, because my wife was, in monosyllables, he gave me a death sentence. And I'm saying, no, he didn't. And he gave me a death sentence, more emphatic each time. And I realized, oh my gosh, have I got something to deal with on my hands? Okay. We now like to say and share with people that when the patient gets the Parkinson's diagnosis, the entire family actually gets Parkinson's. The dog, the children, the relatives, the friends, because Parkinson's not only impacts the person that has Parkinson's, but it also impacts her environment around you. And you get drawn into it whether you like it or not. So I sometimes tell people that when they say, well, what is this Team Coley? And I said, well, way back on July 4th, 1976, I said I do, but there was a deficient informed consent form. Okay, it didn't tell me I was going to be going through all of this.
Crystal ball.
It didn't tell me what this life test was going to be about. So, they call it clinical trials. I call it marriage trials. Okay. So that kind of takes us up to the point. And Denise is nice when she says she gave herself a 3-month pity party. I like to describe it as she gave herself a Thanksgiving banquet, pulled out the finest table linen, decorated it with the finest china and said, and she had a party. Okay, this was not a lightweight thing. She had a party until I went to her one day and said, "Look, if you're gonna have this party, you're gonna have to do this part by yourself for the rest of your life, because I'm not going there. I am not going down that rabbit hole." What I heard was different from what you heard, and I'm giving you time to think about a little bit. But I don't want people continually looking at me funny, going, what did he do, and why isn't he speak? What's going on? And I said, we got to tell people, because I don't think it's as bad as you think it is in terms of people's reaction to you. I think if they don't know, they can't be helpful, they can't share. And I'm sure, one of the things we really like about the work you're doing, George, is you're broadcasting it with your megaphone everywhere.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to fix some of our challenges unless people know and understand our community a lot better than they do.
And that's an interesting point. When you get that diagnosis, the reason why they ask what day were you diagnosed, that's diagnosis. But typically, most people have had it 10 to 15 plus years before. Mine actually was 13 to 15 years before.
And I know that's not our subject today, but at another point, I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we've discovered doing our outreach work over the last 3 years, about some of the non-motor and non-mental side effects of Parkinson's. And just to hit one, just an example, and I'll leave it. So we found a lot of people who have Parkinson's live alone. You're fortunate you have your partner. Denise and I are partners in this, but there are a lot of people who live alone. And now that I know about facial masking, anxieties, depression, I wonder how many people that we are running into actually had their marriages or their relationships with significant others broke up because they didn't understand Parkinson's and the side effects. And that instead of having someone there with you for the rest of your life to help, improve the outcomes and help you live better with Parkinson's, they're gone because they were driven away by some of the symptoms of Parkinson's. So I'll put that in the parking lot. That's something to explore one day out there to, help our community.
What I find inspiring is that, again, you both support one another. Unfortunately, my mother was one of those individuals you mentioned that was alone. And I said to myself, it's time to step up because she sacrificed a lot of her life to make me the man I am today. So I knew that if she was going to go through that I had to be there right by her side. And like you, I knew nothing. The even more troubling is she had it for 15 years, but I heard the name Parkinson's. I didn't really know what it was. We didn't focus much on it. I didn't know if she was ashamed to have it. She didn't know what it was either. So it's so many areas that I wish I could have asked her. But the last 4 years, when I had really been thrown right into it and had no choice, when she also had late-term dementia. And at 4 a.m. one day after she went to a study that didn't work out, they might have changed her medicine too drastically, and she was moving her furniture out of her house at 4 a.m. because she thought someone was going to harm her. And that was a night that really changed all of our lives. But like you, I just admire you both because, again, at least you have one another to support. But like you actually brought up, there's so many out there that don't, and we have to reach all of those individuals too. But I really enjoy those stories, and I think we could talk for 200 years on all this. I actually also equate a lot of the Parkinson's community until this year, where we're hoping the national plan to end Parkinson's will pass through Senate. But they really had no laws in the United States to help individuals, caretakers, or those diagnosed. And before my world of caregiving and my time, I was a reserve police officer. I'm still a reserve, also an attorney, and I have a PhD in criminal justice. But my dissertation was on aiding African-American mothers who've lost their loved one due to crime, specifically murder, West Palm Beach, Florida. So I've really dedicated before this my life to victims of crime. And that's why your journey also, even though I heard you speak today, means a lot to my heart, not just for Parkinson, but in the world for other areas. So again, I want to thank you both for being here, and I hope we'll be fighting together side by side for many years to come. And I'm not, I'm not going to sleep until we find a cure, because when I think about, my mother and think about all of you who become my family. I just can't rest. And I always say Parkinson's disease doesn't take a break, so why should I? So,
Exactly.
We appreciate
Exactly.
that.
She came into our life, took a seat in the back of the car, and we can't go anywhere without her.
yeah. And it's just incredible too. It's been unfortunately 4 years for me, but I've met so many incredible people like both of you, learned so many things. This punching for Parkinson's, this comic book author I'm actually speaking to next week named Matt, who does comics with Parkinson's. The little dot is the part. It's like, and then we have Phil Jerky, who's a comedian. There's just so many amazing people out there that people just don't know, even that you two are out there fighting. So on that note, I just want to turn for a moment, because again, I started this, we have the Together for Sharon podcast. We hope to have both of you, because my wife joins us and it's so much fun, even though Bernard might argue with me, but to have the female perspective. I like the women, or the ladies are always in the bosses, like my mom. She was my best friend, which I'm proud of being a mama's boy. Some people might not be. But so I just want to talk a little bit. I'm going to actually try to pull this up about your book, and hopefully we'll still have a lot of time, but I'm trying to make sure I'm respectful to both of you. So first, what I'd like to do, if this works out, is share the website. Because again, something, and hopefully you can see it too, it's something that's important to me, again, is you two is, again, I send my love and support all over and always, but I want everyone in the world, not just in the US, to learn about PD Movers. So as I maybe scroll a little, if you can tell us a little bit about it. After this, I like to focus too and switch. I have the book up. So this is the Coley show, and we're dedicating all of this again to you, and this will be shared around the world. And as you know, it'll be a permanent home on the website, but I'm going to ask everyone to support you both, to buy the book, to visit the site, and not just to make this about a podcast or a talk, but this has to be a continual effort. It has to continue. It can't just end with a hi and goodbye, and then, oh, we shared the book. I'm going to share this again and again until you all listening hopefully you'll never get tired of the three of us, but we want this to reach everywhere. I mean, I've had a great experience interviewing, and Denise, thank you again for that. Over 600 people now around the world, from Africa to England to France to Spain. So hopefully they're listening now. They're following us on social media, and then they'll also join you. But we need PD Movers in this movement around the world. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about PD Movers, and we'll leave the book next. So we'll take this by little steps.
Right, so I'll start off. PD Movers, we became involved right at the beginning, but PD Movers actually was born 2 years prior, when Dr. Shaw of Columbia and Anita Parker spent 2 years going to the community, going to church, going to the community-based health program they had, listening and sharing, listening and sharing. They weren't there for one and done. They were there for the long term. They gained the trust, they earned the trust, and from that was the beginning of the PD Movers. We were brought in when they were looking for a group of people who would tell their stories. So as you look at the front page, those are many of the people who were part of the PD Movers. There were about 12 of us, I believe.
Yeah.
And of the 12 of us, we told our stories, whether we were care partners or people with Parkinson's, or Dr. Shaw or Anita Parker and Lori Quinn and the students. And the importance of this is, it is a storybook of people who are Black, who are experiencing Parkinson's and have the lived experience. And so through this, we have shown it to children, we've shown it to adults. And the one thing that is in common, they said they've learned a lot because there's medical information in there, and the stories are what are riveting. And those stories were illustrated by Randall Pearson, who is an excellent illustrator, because people will remember either visually, auditorial, or whether or not they read it. And one thing I want people to remember is, when you read these stories, these are real people and their lived experiences, and they were willing to share for a few moments the stories of their lives. And I'll turn it over to Bernard.
So a little more in depth about the book, because it's not just stories.
I'm gonna flip to the
for
book
us.
as you
And the thing
talk.
I want people to understand is this book is an excellent model of for patient-facing materials, producing patient material that bridge the gap and reach not just under-engaged communities, but many communities. And I'm gonna drill down on that in just a second. But it's a model. It's a model of how to do it. And so we're very much humbled and excited by the reach that this book has had, by the things that we have heard back. And we don't want people to think this is just, oh, a bunch of people got in a room and all of a sudden, you know, they told their stories. And it's like, wow, let's do a book. This was a labor of love. And when I talk about the book being a model, clearly the background was the hosting or the curating organization wanted to talk about Parkinson's. But we wanted to talk about hope, spirituality, the journey that we had. We wanted to help people. And the beauty of this book is it's the patient voice is telling the story and explaining Parkinson's. So, and that's unusual. That's not out there in a lot of places. It's not all sort of an entertainment piece or all an educational piece. It's a blend so that we can speak to various communities. One of the exciting things that we've heard with the book, and you alluded to it, it's not just people with Parkinson's who have gotten back to us on the book. We've had people from the medical profession say, wow, I've been practicing 20 years or more in the Parkinson's community, and I learned something about Parkinson's. I never thought of my patients that way. So we've had an impact on the community, talking about how they view their patients now and how they would change up their practice to engage their patients. We've had people who do research that have never sat down with a Parkinson's patient go, wow, I didn't know this is what was really happening. I just know we're trying to figure out a cure or learn something about the science of Parkinson's. But wow, you put a face on this. And that's one of the things we hope comes through. We've also, even though this group is all Black on the cover, one of the things that we got back early on was, oh my goodness, how universal these themes are, which for Denise and I is very important because we've always believed that. And so people from various communities are getting back to us saying, this is absolutely wonderful. I learned all of this stuff. I am even sorry that I looked at the cover and thought this was a Black book. This is really a book about Parkinson's and the Parkinson's journey. And so we're just excited by that because that was one of the goals. And it's fantastic. And just a quick footnote, not only has this book been translated to Spanish, there's some work underway to see if it can't be translated into a number of languages. But the thing that makes this most exciting to me, and it goes back to what I initially said, was it's a model for those in the healthcare industry to follow. There's a version of this book coming out that is totally Latinx from the Spanish community, but it's their stories are replacing ours so that they're following the model. And we believe that that is something that will help the reach of the message that we had. That here's Parkinson's, here's the description, but it's not the end of your life, okay? You can live life with Parkinson's. And it's important for people to live their life with Parkinson's and try to, as much as possible, live the best life they can.
I think you two, you're both inspirational and beautiful, but also the artwork is so beautiful. Because I actually hope one day to write a book of children's for my kids, because I couldn't explain what their grandmother was going through when she was had Parkinson's, and I have 3 children. One was about 6 at the time, 4, and then the smallest might not unfortunately remember mom. But my youngest, the one that's growing up now, getting taller than all of us, I just had trouble, explaining. So I think artwork is important, but yours is so beautiful. And
George,
yes,
try this. We have been excited by the fact that first we did it, and many of the PD movers did it, and then we've been telling everyone else, the children really take to this book.
right.
It's worked. It has worked with multiple ages, not just a bunch of old folks,
And school
but even schools. So I'll tell you a quick little story that excited the daylights out of us. One of our colleagues asked us to send a signed copy of the book to her nephew, who was in school in Southeast United States and needed some uplifting, felt a little, uncomfortable. Now, not because they had Parkinson, just, to buoy him up. So we sent the book. He got so excited about reading the book that he took the book to school and shared it for show and tell day.
Mhm.
Well, the principal happened to be sitting in their classroom that day for show and tell, and then let out a secret that she had been carrying. She was suffering from Parkinson's disease.
Oh.
And so she was so inspired by what the book and what happened that she's decided that she came out to her entire faculty and to the school that she had Parkinson's disease. And they're now working on integrating Parkinson's education into this elementary school curriculum.
Oh.
Just the kind of thing you're talking about.
And yeah, you're impacting the world, not just one person and one at a time. But I always say, even if we reach just one new person today that doesn't know about Parkinson's or that is not aware, then we've done something to change the world. So, of course, I'm biased, and this is my favorite page, 15.
Thank you.
But I do want to, I'm going to flip back. And the most amazing thing for everyone listening is it's incredibly also reasonable. So there's really no reason not to purchase the book. Again, my family, my wife is Cuban, her whole side is Cuban, so everyone could probably read the Spanish version. I might not know everything they're talking about, but if you don't, you have the English version. But again, it's very reasonable if you go online. No offense to all the other authors I interviewed, but those are much, more stiff pricing. But this is something that everyone should be, part of and also sharing. So I just wanted to also commend you both on that. And the one thing I liked a lot too is that I read a lot about the book, and just the forward and the beginning is about how it focuses on individuals living, but specifically the African American and Black individuals. But one portion of the national plan to end Parkinson's was to really reach more diverse populations, and that again means a lot to me in my heart. I put my life on the line for many years for everybody. I didn't see color or race or anything. When you get a call, at least this officer of reserve didn't look at that. But we need to open up areas individuals in populations that I've served that don't have the availability like a computer. So maybe they won't even be able to hear our podcast because they don't have that information. So I think, again, what you're doing is unique and very needed at this time in 2024. You would think we would be much more advanced, but we still are learning. Again, I learn from everyone I meet and speak to. So again, I commend both of you on that. We still have a little bit of time, so maybe if you had some areas, I'd like to focus now on what you're working on currently, and maybe some things in the future before we wrap up. But again, it's an honor to have you both, and I would spend 20 hours and then you won't want to be my friend. But there's just so much information.
Thank you so
So
much.
thank you for this, and thank you for this opportunity. So we're going to tell you about a current project we have.
Please.
Based on the outreach, like you, we've gotten out and talked to a whole lot of people. For somebody who didn't know anything about Parkinson's back in 2018, I feel like I've just graduated with my PhD in Parkinson's.
I'll call you Dr. Coley.
But not just on the science side, on the lived experience side, which we want to emphasize here, because that's important. And I love hearing you say you want your grandchildren to know what your mother went through. Because actually one day, George, it could be them looking at you.
Yeah.
Okay. And we want to remove some of the stigma We wanted to remove health disparities. So one of our current projects is this. We are hosting the first ever Black PD Summit. And you say, well, why? Why not just summit for everybody? Well, because they haven't been engaged. Now, not intentionally. The healthcare industry's tried to reach out, but they don't know how to reach out. There are issues, there are barriers. So rather than just sit there and criticize all the efforts out there, we decided we're going to do something about it. And so we're hosting this summit. And there's some very unique features of the summit. First off, a requirement for reaching some of the underengaged communities is to create a very safe environment. It's not that there aren't webinars and seminars out there. It's just that many people in the community do not feel safe attending.
Right.
They don't want to be seen. And as you know, talking to your wife, stuff, I'm sure, there are stigmas attached to something like a degenerative brain disease. They don't want to be known. It challenges a person to their core. And so one of the ugly sides of Parkinson is not just the physical challenge, it's the mental challenge, the psychological challenge. So we're hosting this thing to create a very safe environment for many in our communities to come and address this problem.
And please share,
over again.
please share the flyer when you have it. I'll definitely be posting it everywhere.
Okay, yes. I may be able to pull it up before the end of this. Over and over again, we heard from people that they didn't know there was anybody that looked like them, that had Parkinson's disease. So they aren't alone. They've been hiding out because they thought, oh my gosh, this is an old white man's disease. How did I get it? So we had the experience in coming together for the PD Movers book. I'll just describe this. The first day we all worked together as a group. There we were on a screen and we were looking at 20 people, 15 or 16 of whom were people just like us who had Parkinson's or they were the care partner. And I know while the coordinator was busy talking, I'm not sure we heard much of what she was saying because all of us were sitting there with tears coming down our eyes because it's like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There are people like me. I'm not, it's not, I didn't do something wrong. So we're capturing that because we found out how important that was in the community. And this summit, we're bringing together what we hope will be the largest assembly of Blacks with Parkinson's disease ever assembled, because our community needs that as a jumping off point to move ahead. It's great that there are resources out there, but they're not going after it. You know, representation matters. And so this summit isn't just the people with Parkinson's and their care partners. We're bringing together all of the Black MDSs we can find, all of the neurologists who are focusing on Parkinson's disease, patient coordinators, PIs, investigators, clinical technicians, nurses, social workers, therapists, so that our community can see for the first time how many of us there are and that there are people that they feel like they can trust, because trust has been a huge barrier. And without even getting into it, there are valid sociological and historical reasons for that. So we don't need to go any further. Their feelings are quite valid. So we're addressing that with the summit. We're also addressing one other thing that's heard. Often we hear people in the Parkinson community of all ethnicities and all groups say, I don't feel like I was heard. So in our second session in the summit, the focus is all around holding a town hall. And the stars of the show will be the attendees. It's going to be about them, strictly about them. We're not going to bring in a bunch of experts to talk at them. They're the experts. I like to say in every physician visits, there is at least 2 experts in the room. There's the doctor, and they are the scientific expert on the disease or the condition. But nobody has a PhD in your lived experience but you.
And
You are the expert. And then we can add it if they're fortunate enough to bring along their care partner. We got 3 experts in the room.
Yeah.
And part of our mission is to elevate the lived experience and the importance of it to equal status with the scientific if people are going to move forward and live a better life with Parkinson's disease.
Thank you. And I think the one word to sum it all up is you're making history. So that's really what this is, having the first ever, again, I keep coming back to the national plan. That to me, we're in a time of some historical events for individuals inside and out of the community for Parkinson. So commend both of you, and I hope to at least share as much as I can, everything you're going to be doing in the future. I do have one question or final question for Denise. I'm always amazed because as you know, and you're even bigger than me, but I'm a big supporter of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I had the honor, I don't know how it happened last Friday, to meet him for the first time. But every time I go to events and support, all of a sudden I see you popped up to speak. So I wanted to know, maybe a little short, if you could tell me how you got involved with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, maybe a little bit what they mean to you, and then we'll sum up everything today. But again, you're both heroes to me. I don't do this like you. We don't do this for money. I just think of Denise every day. And, I don't want to get all emotional here, but, when I left Michael J. Fox, I kind of don't know, maybe it was the timing and maybe, I don't know, his medicines at the time, but I saw him and I saw what Parkinson does to people. And it brought me back to my mother and what we went through. And I had to go, even though I'm 6'2", 200 something pounds in law enforcement, had to go to the bathroom because it was, it was tough. So, but like I said, just maybe you could touch a little bit about that, because I think what you're doing in that capacity too, since you're both doing so many things, I don't think any of us are sleeping at night, but, maybe you could touch on that because it's inspirational for so many too.
well, thank you very much. And I was really excited that you finally met your hero. It means so much to meet someone who you read about, feel so much about, who has impacted your life. And when I think about Michael J. Fox, because it's Black History Month, I always think of the picture of him and Muhammad Ali,
Right.
both there together, working to bring Parkinson awareness to the community. And as a matter of fact, tonight I'm getting ready to write a piece on both Muhammad Ali and Ronnie Ali, because they, to me, are the first people who were people of color, who were Black, who were talking about the disease, walking the talk, also saying how to help as a care partner, which is so important, which is what Bernard and I are looking at all the time. But so often, people will ask me about care partner and ask him about the people with Parkinson's because they want to get the different perspective, and then they'll go back the other way. And so for me, Michael J. Fox, Muhammad Ali are really those icons that we've been seeing since I grew up, representing Parkinson's disease. And for me, I think of all the little quotes that Muhammad Ali had. I was always waiting to see what he would say and when to go to all the fights, and how they endured this journey, but also were very good about sharing aspects of it so others could learn from it. So I'm hoping that I and Bernard can have the impact where we're providing solutions, and that people are learning from us, and that we're like concentric circles, so the pebble in the water, and see where it goes, and that we will be remembered for trying to bring awareness, education, resources, and research, empowering individuals. And I'd like to end with a quote, and I always mess it up a little bit, but it's Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou said, "Hope and fear cannot occupy the same room." And when I hear that, I think of, I have hope and I want to thrive my life. So I'm looking at all the ways that I can do it while I can. And you asked an important question. Why is it important? I am passionate about it because I'm the third person in my maternal line who had Parkinson's, and they needed to have the help that I now have. Number two, it is my purpose to make sure that I get enough resources out there so people are empowered. And if I do that well, then I've done my job, because I have this box of time. that I have. I don't know how long or how short, but I'm going to seize every moment to make that happen.
No, I really appreciate it. And that message is not just going to end here. I promise it'll continue on forever. Just like my goal is that people, even if one person learned about my mother, if you met her, someone asked me the other day, what would she say? She would say, George, don't do it. Go spend time with the kids. But I just can't do that because, like I said, anytime I think of you or any of the individuals that I now consider family out there fighting this disease and the caretakers, I know that our job's not done. So we're going to just all together now as a team keep fighting. So I just want to thank both of you. It's really been an honor. I've been excited to tell my wife I'm meeting. So I've done a lot of these, but you two I keep close to my heart. So, and I know how busy you are because this is like, I'm not Barbara Walters out there, but it means a lot to have you both here. So I usually end each episode with just something quick, a statement. Usually I'm saying it more to the audience, but this goes to both of you too. But we love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I'll advocate for you along with both of you. And together, our voices are just so much stronger. And I'm only just getting started, even though it's been doing it for a while. I say that because every day you wake up, it's kind of a new fight for you, Denise, but also for Bernard. We're not going to give up. We're always by your side. So I just want to again send a big virtual hug like we started and thank both of you from the bottom of my heart. This podcast and talk isn't just about a podcast, even though we call it that. It means so much more that even a few words won't, share. But I hope our relationship and everyone listening continues for many years to come. And I can't wait for the day where I can call you both and say we found a cure. So that's again, I'm getting emotional, so I'll stop because we want to go down that way. But that's my dream. So last thing is we started Together for Sharon, just in memory of my mother. And I sometimes sit and look at my daughter and say to myself, maybe she'll continue this on. But before I say that, I stop myself and say, you know what, I don't want to continue it. I want it to be over. And I don't, we'll keep this up in memory of my mother, but I don't want anyone to have to find out they're diagnosed because, I can still get it. We don't know the causes truly, but that's another topic I'd love to talk sometime about. But I know for your time, I want you to be able to have some dinner, relax, and enjoy life. So I want to just thank both of you from my heart and my family to you, and thank everyone listening also. This has been another, I can't even say it's been another because this one's been so inspiring, but this has been just a fabulous talk and another podcast fulfilled, but just beginning with a Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Again, just want to send love to everyone. Thank you. And thank you both. Please share this. Please support my two family members here. And the fight again has just begun. We have to share the book. We have to purchase the book, bring it to your kids' school, let them read it, because there's someone out there right now that was just diagnosed, likely in the Black community, and they're just kind of feel alone and no clue where to go. Well, guess what? If they knew Denise and Bernard, maybe they might have even just a little bit more chance to know and to know that they're never alone. So thank you both again.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.